Thank you, someone, for hitting recording. Okay, this is our September membership meeting, September 10th, 2020. We are going to start and we're going to have a great meeting. The meeting usually lasts us for about, I would say about 2 hours, hour and a half. And we'll take it from there. I did not ask, but Jared, is Taylor, is Bo here?
I don't see them on the.
I'm here.
Oh, you are? Okay, sorry.
Right,
it's a long list.
Bo, you gonna do your own slides if you're inside out? Or do a little?
I can, but then.
Huh?
I can, but there are a lot of slides.
There are a lot of slides?
Yeah.
Okay. So would you like to? So what's the
I
plan?
can if you want me to. Either way.
Okay. Yeah, you can do that because I don't have in my slide deck. So you'll have to share your own slides. And let me just make sure that you have, start, that you are a co-host. Okay. Let me stop sharing my screen real quick so I can see you. Bo, where you at, Bo? Looking for Bo. Looking for Bo. Looking for Bo.
Mm.
Hey, Marshall, what's up, Mr. Man? Looking for, oh, man. Oh, we got a lot of good people here today. Loving it.
Yeah, good morning, Charles. Good morning, everybody.
All right. Sorry to scream you out like that, Marshall.
We got 60 so far.
I know you just showing the love. Ain't
All
nothing
right.
wrong with
everybody.
that. Nothing wrong with that.
Well, everyone just say hello to everybody. Why not? Get off mute.
Hey,
Come
good
on.
morning.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Hello, good morning.
Hey, here we go.
Good to
Have
see
some
everybody.
fun.
Good morning, everybody. Hello.
Yeah.
There we
I'm
go.
impressed, guys.
Yeah.
Hello.
Happy
Zoom.
faces.
Good morning, everyone.
All right.
Hello.
Our
That's
state
right. Say it.
senator,
Wave your hand.
61.
our state senator Cordell Clear is here.
Hey,
Good
Cordell.
morning.
How you
Good
doing?
morning, everybody.
Good morning, good
Hey.
morning, Cordell.
Oh, my favorite senator, but I'm no longer in your district.
Oh, I'm
Fresh
sad.
off a primary win.
Yes, yes.
Beginning.
Okay, so Bo, I made you co-host. You got that? All right. I just love to see all these lovely people. We got all these lovely people this morning. So as I start, just put your name in the chat. Just let us know where you're from, so that way we can actually say hello back. I know that the staff would love to say hello to everyone individually, but it's good to always have people to say hello lively. Okay, so I'm going to go to my slide deck, and I'm going to start this show. This piece. So as we know, if you're a Spanish speaking person, please hit the globe in front of you. We have translation. We have translation. We have two lovely people who are doing translation for this event. So please, if you need any Spanish translation, and if you ever need any other translation, please let me know. We can arrange that. Okay, as everyone can see my slides, right?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see now. Let me just put this here. Okay, the mission statement. There you are, Tina. Are you muted?
No, yeah, I was muted. I'm sorry. I got distracted with coffee. Good morning, everyone. WEAC's mission: Since 1988, we have worked to build healthy communities by ensuring that people of color and/or low income participate meaningfully in the creation of sound and fair environmental health protection policies and practices.
Thank you very much, Tina. Bailey.
Everyone, my name is Bailey, Manager of Membership and Organizing at We Act for Environmental Justice. We Act is a nonprofit working in Northern Manhattan, and we do our work by our members participating meaningfully in the sound creation of policies and practices. But in order to do that, you have to become a member. Membership is $25 and lasts a full calendar year. So if you were to sign up today, your membership would not expire until September 10th, 2023. We ask that you become a member so you can participate meaningfully and develop the practices that will help keep Northern Manhattan, our city, our state, and around the country safe from environmental harm.
Community agreement.
Hello. I love these agreements, which start out by saying, be present and participate. Just one microphone, please. Speak from the I perspective, move up, move back, and land your plane. Use appropriate and respectful language in the chat. Please respect other points of view, and this is a judgment-free zone. Thank you.
Very much. Put your name in the chat, everyone. If you just coming in late, just say hello to everybody. We all kind of said hellos, but put your name in the chat if you're there. If you come in lately.
Alan Epps is here, Charles.
Hey, Alan, good to have you.
Good to have y'all too. Good morning, everyone.
Joyce?
It's Jewel.
Jewel, I don't apologize.
Thanks,
That
Charles.
was Joyce.
It's just like I don't know you for the last 15 years or anything like that, right?
Yeah, I'll forgive you. I'll forgive you this first
All
time.
right.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I am privileged to read the agenda for today's general membership meeting. There will be an introduction to We Act for Environmental Justice. There will be announcements from We Act staff. There will be a great presentation on the Environmental Bond Act with questions and answers. The DC policy team provides an overview on the Inflation Reduction Act with questions and answers, and then there will be closing words. Thank you.
So,
on September 13th, on Tuesday, we will be hosting a trendy or toxic panel discussion so that folks understand more about sustainable fashion. If you want to learn more about what's in your clothes and how you can be good to the environment and fashionable at the same time, please attend this event on September 13th at 7 p.m. It's going to be at weact.org. You can check our website out under the events calendar. Thank you.
Chris, do we have this? Can we stick this in the chat, Chris?
Yeah, I'll drop in a link.
Thank you very much, sir. Annie, you want to make this announcement?
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name's Annie. I'm the Climate Justice Campaign Coordinator at We Act. It's good to see you all on this beautiful Saturday. I wanted to give everybody a heads up that on September 20th, during New York City Climate Week, we're going to have our monthly Climate Justice Working Group meeting. And we're going to use this time to really scale back and define what climate justice means to us as a community, as an organization, and as a working group, and how that's going to play out in the work that we are going to be focusing on for the coming year. So it's a great meeting if you're new to the group. It's a great reflective meeting if you've been a part of the group, and I hope to see many of you there. And I'll drop a link in the chat to register. This meeting will be on Zoom at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much, Annie. Really appreciate you. Next slide, that would be me. I control the slides. All right, so we have a WEAC Transportation Working Group. We definitely need to do a survey. So all those who are interested in transportation in New York City, it'd be great if you become this part of this. I think I can copy that. Oh, someone got to mute. Tylee, you got to mute. You got to mute. I got you. I got you. So.
Go back one slide, Charles.
Yep, I'm going to go back one slide. All right, so if you're interested in transportation or you're interested in anything that we do around this work around transportation and environmental justice, please let's make that happen. Be a part of the survey. And once you do the surveys, the people who are in charge of the working group will be actually able to lead you down the road of what we're going to do and what the plan is for transportation. All right. All right. Thank you, guys. Next slide is me. Uh-oh. Did that slide come up, Chris? You didn't stick it in there?
Yeah, I dropped it in.
All right. I'll figure it out right now. So let me just stop screen sharing and let me just go over here real quick. Then let me see if I can pull it up real quick. All right. They both didn't go in, huh? All right. I have them. Oh, here it is. It just dropped in. Or maybe I can reload it. Maybe I'll just reload it now. Yep, it reloaded. Okay. All right, let me just do this. Sorry about that, everyone. Just a little technical difficulties. There we go. All right, so workforce training keeps on moving forward. We have free training on Zoom on Wednesday the 14th. We have a company called Pivot who's going to be giving us those trainings. We're going to be looking at how to make acquisitions on mega farms and mega projects. So that's something that we're going to be doing. On the 21st of September, we'll be doing on-site development and sales and education and how do you price out a mega farm and what the benefits are for the community. And then on the 28th, we're going to be doing some GSI mapping and heloscope training and AutoCAD. So these all meetings are in the evening. We're going to be continue to work on our solar program and can continue to build it. So if you're interested, Chris is going to drop the link in the chat, and sending this out this week. So everyone who's interested, please participate. Can we go back one? Yes. So the Healthy Homes meeting, as you guys may have heard, there are some issues with Jacob Reese. I understand they made some oxygenate. How do you pronounce that? Someone help me out with that.
Arsenic.
Arsenic in the water. So we want to continue to build a strong bond with our community to make sure we stand up and continue to build power in our community to just make sure that we are in the right frame of mind and we're making sure that we are building power to fight for everyone's rights and their safety. Okay. Next slide. We did that one. We did that one. No announcements. Here you go. Bailey, it's you, the planning committee.
Meeting,
Bailey.
Bailey, I'm the manager of membership, and I have the distinct pleasure of supervising your planning committee. If you do not know, your planning committee is the liaison between the members and upper management. So you give us feedback, which we take to management to let them know your concerns and your issues so we can build a healthy Northern Manhattan. I'm going to let each of our planning committee members introduce themselves, and we will start off by introducing herself, Jewel Jones. Jewel, take it away.
Thank you, Bailey. Yes, thank you. And thank you everyone for voting for me to be a member of the planning committee. I am a returning member to the planning committee. I live in East Harlem. And currently with the planning committee, I just want to mention that we have subcommittees. And I currently serve as chair of the communications subcommittee. And please, members, if you wish to become a part of any of these subcommittees, but especially the communication one, you contact Bailey and he will provide you with more information. That's a little bit about me. I want to now introduce Shael, who is the chair of the planning committee. Shael.
Thank you, Joel. Good morning, everybody. Shael Pandya. I go by he, him. I live in West Harlem with my wife and 3 kids. And I'm very excited about the planning committee. As Bailey said, you know, this committee is here for you guys to let us know, you know, what we can bring up to react and vice versa. And we really want it to be actionable this year. So we are looking forward to a very fruitful year. And as Joel mentioned, please reach out to Bailey and be part of this committee so we can make things that are affecting our community and our neighborhood, you know, get some resolution to the power of react. So I'll give it over to Tina. Tina?
Thank you, everyone. I'm Tina Johnson, and thank you for giving me a chance to serve on the planning committee again. And I just want to first back up what Shael just said, get in touch with Bailey, and one wish for the future that just Bailey is so busy processing new members for WEACT. So we need everybody's help to do that. I just want to introduce myself. I'm a local activist that was born and raised in Grant Houses, NYCHA Development. Of course, I'm a member of the planning committee and very happy about it. But I also was appointed to the previous mayor's Environmental Justice Advisory Board, which has now been folded into the current mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice. And I am trying really hard to advocate for where I live. And I'm really happy to be back at WEACT in the middle of the action. And the next person is Joyce, but Joyce went before me. Joyce?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Tina. So yes, I am happy to be on the planning committee. And I live on the Upper West Side, just south of the Manhattan Valley. And I chair the policy subcommittee of the planning committee. And we're working to engage WEACT members to learn about their policy issues about environmental justice and to help enact environmental justice policies and see that they are enforced. So right now, we're looking at environmental justice policies as they have to do with sanitation service. And we're certainly seeing some inequities that we're looking to members to work with us on. And I am a member of the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board, so that there are ways that I can assist in this issue. Thank you again. Thank you for voting for me to be on the planning committee. And now I want to introduce Lizelle Williams.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for voting for me and for my joining back with the WEACT Planning Committee. I'm on the Communications Subcommittee group. And I'd like to extend an invitation to members to join the subcommittee, the communications group. We're going to work on new ideas and strengthen the current communication activities. Anything to increase WEAC's reach to get new members, new membership, get our messaging out, and just strengthen our community and make it a safer and healthier place and informed community. So thanks again. See you soon. And I'll turn it over to Juan Noel. Noel?
Noel, you're on mute.
Good morning.
Okay, now I got it. Hello, good morning. My name is Yvonne Noel, and I'd like to say thank you to everybody who voted for me. And I joined, right now I'm a member of planning committee, so I'm joining with you guys to make sure and to make progress I know the planning committee is not really close to with a membership. What I'm trying to say is I would like to see the membership and the planning community to come together and every decision where we can come together to do a good thing. So at the same time, I'm living in Upper East Side in East Harlem, close to Mount Sinai Hospital. So my job is to talking with the youth and then to explaining the value of REACT, and then to those people to come in to become a member of REACT, to join REACT. So I'd like to say again, thank you for everybody who voted for me. And I will turn it to Bali. Bali, is you, I'm returning to you, Bali.
Good morning again, everyone. We have two of our planning committee members who are not able to attend, and I'm going to read a statement from Russell Taylor, who lives in New York City and is a NYCHA resident and has been a WEACT member since 2017. Russell currently serves on the planning committee, and he chairs the subcommittee on outreach, coordinating with the working groups and staff and with the general public to get WEACT's name out there in places that people don't know what WEACT does and is about. Russell states that WEACT has changed the trajectory of his life, and he's just so proud to be a part of the planning committee. And WEACT assisted him in running for a county committee seat in the 68th Assembly. And as of June 28th, he was elected. So he is so grateful for the staff helping him get that done. Our last planning committee member, Paul Zigler, is a trucker, so he works overnight. So he was unable to attend, but he extended a thank you and a welcome for having him on the planning committee, and he wishes to reach back to you at a later date. I will turn it back over to Charles.
Okay, and the next thing we're going to be doing on the agenda is, Pam, are you almost ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so can you want to share your screen?
Oh, I thought you added it. You didn't add it?
All right. Nah, I didn't
Okay,
get that.
that's okay. I can share my screen. I'll share my screen.
Yeah, you have access. Actually, I got to stop sharing, and you have to share.
Okay, just a minute. Okay, hi, my name is Pamela Stewart Martinez. I'm the Director of Civic Engagement and Organizing. And over the next few weeks, you're going to hear a lot about ballot measures and the Bond Act. And specifically today, we're going to be talking about the Environmental Bond Act. I'm going to discuss more of the political behind the scenes of how a bond act works. So let's start with what is a bond act, because you're going to be expected to flip your ballot during the general election and answer questions on the back. And one of those questions is a bond act. So the Bond Act actually allows the state to take on debt to fund projects for a specific purpose. And you're going to hear more about that through both of our speakers today, Zareta Lopez, who gratefully we already uploaded her PowerPoint presentation. So we'll be able to assist her with presenting that. But she'll be speaking on the Environmental Bond Act that's going to be on the November 8th general election. And the Bond Act also, any Bond Act also authorizes the state controller to sell state bonds up to a certain amount of money, a certain amount. So how does this work in New York State? In New York State, the legislature, through a simple majority vote in each legislative chamber, so we're talking the Assembly and the Senate, is required to refer a bond issue. And then the governor's signature is needed for a bond issue to be placed on the ballot. In New York State, in our New York State Constitution, in Section 11, Article 7, for those folks who love to look up law like I do, it requires that the bond issue go before the voters, and that would be everyone on this call and all registered voters in New York State, to either say yes or no, so they can approve it or reject it. So the state legislator they have to place this on the ballot when you have spending that's beyond a certain level, or the state is looking into approval for new debt. And that's what the Bond Act would essentially be. So that is just a brief overview of what the Bond Act is, and we can have more questions a little bit later. The next person who's going to be speaking, and her name is Zareta Lopez, and Zareta is here. I just want to let her know we do have her slides and we're ready to present them. Charles, you have the slides ready?
Yeah, I got them. 1 second.
And I want to thank her so much for being here and presenting this for us. And after she speaks, we're going to have Sonal Jessel, our Director of Policy, State Policy, speak on what it means to our community, the importance of the Environmental Bond Act. So Zareta, you're up.
Hi, thanks so much, Pamela. I'm not sure, I didn't send any slides over, so I'm not sure.
Andy said that you would be using the slides from the toolkit.
Okay, well, Andy's on the call, so if he needs to.
Maybe what we could do, Pamela, if it's okay with you, I could just run through these big picture coalition things real quick, and then we could transition to Zareta to talk a little bit about how her work fits into this.
Okay, so that would be Andy Bicken, and he's on the call with us, on the Zoom with us as well. So Andy, the floor is yours.
Thanks, and thanks for flexibility and working with us this morning. Hi, everybody. I'm Andy Bicking with Scenic Hudson up in the Hudson Valley, and thanks so much to Pamela and the whole team for inviting Zareta and I in today as your special guests. We really love the work of We Act and are just so inspired by the leadership that you are providing and helping all of us in the environmental community understand how to do better. As a member of New Yorkers for Clean Water and Jobs and on the steering committee for the campaign that's looking to promote the Bond Act measure, I wanted to just give you kind of a high-level summary of what it is about, and then we'll transition to Zareta to talk a little bit more, just to add a little dimension about what it kind of means from our Hudson Valley perspective, and of course hear from our friend Sonal about kind of what it means for your mission area. The Clean Water, Clean Air, Green Jobs Bond Act is a ballot measure with New York. Will have the opportunities to get on the ballot this November. It's a $4.2 billion measure with really incredible investments in the environment and environmental justice. And as Pamela noted, you need to flip the ballot over. It's on the backside. We can't say that enough for all of us who are experienced voters. I think sometimes it's easy to get lost in the first page with all the candidates, but this year there's that really important measure on the backside. Next slide, please.
Yep, gotcha.
Thank you, sir. So there's, again, a historic investment in the environment, lots of money being spent on climate and justice, key investments in water quality and resilient infrastructure, open space, conservation, and recreation in all four corners of the state, $1.1 billion for habitat restoration and flood risk reduction. This is a major issue in our coastal areas and areas that are prone for flooding. And also $1.5 billion for climate change mitigation. Next slide. And as all of you are probably familiar or may have heard a little bit about, the legislation for the Bond Act, because of the great work of We Act and other organizations in advocating for this, has a 35 to 40% dedication to frontline communities and really trying to make sure that the folks who are bearing the brunt of climate change and have historically been underinvested in have the benefit of this fund to really help them advance many of the projects that are outlined here. So again, the Bond Act is going to do a lot of great things, from drinking water to modernizing our infrastructure, improving health and safety, conserving natural resources. We have all these slides available, and I'm sure we can share them with you, so you've got some talking points to talk to your friends and neighbors about if you'd like. Next slide. So one of the key things that I think is really persuasive about this measure is, in addition to kind of the traditional environmental investments, is it does really dovetail with our economic goals really well. Because of some great research done by ACOM and other organizations, we estimate that we can be creating nearly 100,000 local jobs, everything from people installing renewable energy facilities to upgrading sewer and water infrastructure, or of someone who's serving as a greeter or a docent in a state park. It also is really important because, as I mentioned earlier, it's making investments in our disadvantaged communities with at least 35 to 40% of total funding being available to these communities that have been most harmed by pollution. Next slide. So we're hoping everyone votes yes on November 8th. We have a wonderful website. The slides, I believe, are up there. Vote yes for clean water and jobs. There you can, as an individual or a local organization, you can take a pledge to vote yes. Getting names up on the website where we can show a lot of broad support is going to be really critical to this measure. And of course, we've got a really strong social media presence. Encourage everyone to check us out at NY Bond Act, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Next slide.
I think that's it.
Oh, good. So maybe we can jump to Zareta a little bit, my good friend and colleague from up in Beacon, New York. You can just add a little bit of dimension about some of the things happening to prepare for the Bond Act elsewhere in the state.
I guess all these stores have to close.
No, you're good. Go ahead. Zareta?
Yep, thanks so much, Andy. And thanks to We Act for inviting us today. Would I be able to share my screen?
All right, let me give me a second and I can actually make that happen for you.
Okay.
Let me find you real quick.
Okay.
All right, did someone else find Zareta? I'm on the screen here. And then I'll give her, I'm looking for her.
You think we came too early?
Okay, Zareta, let me just stop sharing my screen. And where are you? Zareta, can you talk again so I can find out where you're at?
Here I am. Can you find me?
Yeah. One more time.
Here I am.
I got you now.
Okay.
It's nice when you have a lot of people join the meeting. It's sometimes a little bit hard.
It's a good situation to be in.
That's a great situation to be in.
Yeah.
So I made you the co-host. So you shouldn't have a problem.
Okay.
All right, guys, someone should mute you. Mute. It's good.
Yeah, if folks could mute their screen.
All right, you're
There we
on.
go.
And then
Yeah.
you should be able to share your screen, right?
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much to Charles and to Pamela and to everyone at WEAC.
I think they'll have a bathroom.
And Andy. I don't know if folks could please put their mics on mute. I think that would be helpful. I'm gonna take a few moments just
Is it possible to?
I'm going to take a few moments to talk about our work here in the Hudson Valley and particularly focus on cities with an emphasis on how the Bond Act can benefit disadvantaged communities. So just to give a little background on the cities I'm going to focus on, I'm going to talk about Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, and Kingston, but especially focus on Poughkeepsie and Newburgh. And these are cities where at least 30% of the population doesn't have access to transportation. So it's a little higher in Newburgh. It's closer to 40%. Also in the city of Poughkeepsie, in the neighborhood that we work in, the north side, at least 1 in 4 children suffer from childhood obesity. The unemployment rate is much higher than the national unemployment rate. So when we think about the Bond Act, it can have incredible effects on the communities, individuals, families, how people live and where they live, and just kind of ensure that everyone has more equitable access to open space and the benefits of open space. So I'm going to share my screen so we can talk about a few of my programs. So a major theme in our work is meeting the moment. How can we meet our communities where they are and really listen to them and work together with them? So as I said, we focus on 3 cities: Poughkeepsie, Kingston, and Newburgh. And just a little bit more background on the River Cities program. We work with community members and local officials to connect people with the outdoors of the Hudson Valley. And our program is really rooted in a few basic principles. How do we create healthy urban ecosystems? How do we create equity? How do we create general joy and delight through creating really vibrant public spaces? So in Poughkeepsie, we have one project that I'm so proud of. There is a park, Pershing Park. It's located on a formerly red line block. And the block that it intersects with is a block that was totally devastated due to urban renewal. And when I first started working at Scenic Hudson, this park was a bit of a dumping ground. There were tires, there were mattresses, there was a bonfire, needles in this public park. And through working with neighbors, a local church, and public housing, we were able to transform part of the park into the first city-sanctioned urban farm and community garden. The urban farmer, Nick, he's the bottom right. He lives 3 blocks from the park, and the urban farm is going to produce well over 1,000 pounds of food for local neighbors. There's 22 garden beds, and everyone who has a garden bed either lives locally or it's the garden bed is rented for free by a local nonprofit. So those are the types of programs that I'm super excited about and can really benefit from the Bond Act.
Okay.
Let me see if I can. We also think a lot about water quality, and we have another coalition where we work with local residents, students, and community groups to have a water coalition where we think about how do we improve the quality of creeks and waterways that run through cities. Scenic Hudson is managing the Sojourner Truth State Park, an area of Kingston that would have been condos had the area not have been protected by Scenic Hudson and the state. And we're really thinking about how do we listen to community members to ensure that we meet the local needs at this site as well. And then when we go to Newburgh, like so many of our urban centers, there's a creek that runs through it. For decades, there's been the hope to have a waterway to serve as a place for people to find peace and respite, but also increase transportation in the city. And we just hired a consultant to conduct a feasibility study to figure out a potential greenway path along the creek. And we completed an open space inventory. So we looked at all the open space in the city of Newburgh and created an assessment that's going to really serve as a guide for the city and park advocates to think about how open space needs to be protected, where it needs to be protected, and how it can serve the needs of city of Newburgh residents. A project that I was really and am very excited about is street trees. So we worked with a local block association, the Parks Conservancy in the city of Newburgh, and neighbors to launch a street tree project that was it served as a catalyst project. We planted about 10 trees on a small block in Newburgh, a block that all too often gets overlooked. And that really served as a catalyst for organizations that planted 40 trees last year. They're planting close to 70 trees this year. And in a city that is really, facing so many disastrous effects due to climate change, street trees can really have an impact and on mental health, on decreasing crime rates in neighborhoods, lowering speeding on streets. And so this is another project that we're really excited about and so proud to support. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If anyone has any questions about these projects or the work, please let me know.
Okay, do we have any questions? Maybe one or two. I see you, Annie.
Hi, thanks, Charles. Yeah, we've been talking a lot about the jobs that are going to be created by the Bond Act, and I'm just wondering if you can maybe comment on that piece of it as well.
Yeah, so, through the projects that, as the director of this program, River Cities program, we were able to have some really interesting initiatives with community members. So for example, building that community garden and farm, we worked with a local youth build organization, and we were able to also help fund the gap between minimum wage and a living wage so that the young people that worked on the project made a living wage. And those are the things that I imagine I would love to be able to kind of spearhead more projects with that through the Bond Act. Also with the Street Trees project, we're looking at using a local arbor company to help with that project. It's a Black-owned father and son company. And then we also have supported environmental justice fellows, and they're kind of the community engagement base of our street tree efforts. And so those are kind of local jobs that also intersect with environmental justice in communities where, where we're working. And we always try to use local contractors, just try to keep these projects as local as possible. And as I mentioned, the urban farmer, he lives from 3 blocks. So like on a rainy day, I'll drive him home, but he usually just walks home from the farm every day when he's there.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne.
also share on that front that, you know, the statewide coalition we built has been really powerful and that we've brought in a lot of union leadership and support. So there's a recognition that there's a lot of these like really cool local projects all over the state. And I'm sure you all have them in your area of Manhattan too. But then there's also big infrastructure projects. And if we think about, you know, the jobs that it takes to upgrade sewer and water, drinking water systems, you know, in multiple municipalities, that's a lot of skilled labor, you know, construction jobs, et cetera, that are going to come to the table.
Great.
Okay. Sounds fantastic. And, you know, and also the solar well, I'm gonna move on. I'm not gonna add. Is that it? Okay, so I think so.
I have a question.
Yeah, quick.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Tali. I'm a WEAC member. I haven't been consistent. However, I work 4 days a week, 10 hours a day, and I'm available Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, like I said, I'm a member. I haven't been really active, but I'm definitely intrigued about what you guys are doing. I want to be a part of it. And a question about the Bond Act. For someone like me, I haven't been convicted of a felony since 1995. And I have a certificate of relief. However, it's still hindering me.
Well, you know something? Let's talk about that another time. All right, listen. This is what I want to do. I don't want to put everything, your whole business in the street, because that's what you're about to do. We can talk. You can actually, we'll talk about the certificate of release and give me a call. You know my name. You know where I'm at. Come and see me.
Yes, I know you are, Mr. Jones, Mr.
All
Calloway.
right, come and see me. We can handle everything that you're asking about. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yep. Sono, you up next, right?
Yeah, Charles, and you'll need to go back to our main slide deck because my slide's on there.
I'm on my way.
Just a quick mention of what was just said is that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for jobs through the Bond Act, and especially there are certain unions that really do specifically work on reaching out to people that do have some interaction with the system and like specifically are working to kind of get people involved in good jobs there. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity.
Okay. This is your slide, right? Sono?
Yeah, so I just want to take it home, the conversation around the Bond Act. Thank you, Andy and Zareta, for all of the amazing information you guys have shared. You know, when it comes to Northern Manhattan and communities like it, there's a lot of opportunity in the Bond Act. So again, just to say it again, the Bond Act is $4 billion coming from New York State to do all sorts of programs to fix our environment or make our environment healthier, whether that be like cleaning our water, providing more like parks and green spaces, reducing air pollution, or improving just basic infrastructure like roads and bridges. There's a lot of opportunity here. And so I'm just giving a couple examples of what could be done in Northern Manhattan, just so people can get a good perspective of that. And I'm also happy to answer, like if there's any more questions, just put them in the chat. So first, clean water is a big focus of what the Bond Act is going to fund. And so what we can do as an organization, as a community, is advocate for funding to go to projects that we want to see done in Harlem and Washington Heights and Inwood and other places like the South Bronx. The North River Sewage Treatment Plant, many of us know it well. We hear all the time about noise, odor issues and other kind of complaints from it. Well, some of this funding can go to fixing maintenance issues that haven't been addressed for a long time. We can also fix sewage overflows and issues with drainage. You know, Harlem, Washington Heights, and Inwood, and so many parts of New York City have experienced a lot of flooding, even when it's not a hurricane, but just a heavy rainstorm. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we don't have our streets are not draining properly. So there's money that can go to fixing that, and we won't see the amount of flooding that we have just from a rainstorm like we did, especially last summer, we saw it so much. The other opportunities is things that can improve our air quality, because we do have worse air pollution in Harlem and uptown because of all the different facilities that are polluting, like our buses and our bus depots and our sewage treatment plants, our power plants, everything we have up here. So one thing that we can be doing is putting money towards electrifying school buses, which is something We Act has been working on for a very long time. So kids on school buses going to school can have clean air and not be breathing in diesel that causes asthma. We can expand our parks, have more green parks, put in more trees that not only, like was said earlier, is nice just for mental health, for happiness, to have like green spaces to go in neighborhoods, but also helps with the heat problem. Extreme heat has gotten so much worse, and Northern Manhattan doesn't have its fair share of nice shady trees that keep us all cool. The other thing is childhood lead poisoning. That's a big problem that we've been working on for a long time, and I know a lot of people have firsthand experience with this. One source of lead is in our water pipes. And so money from the Bond Act can go towards getting rid of those water pipes and putting in ones that don't have lead and are not leaching lead into our water. Other examples in the infrastructure side, we have roads that need to be upgraded. We have the picture on the top right here is the East Harlem waterfront that has been ignored for a really long time, and is getting some funding to have some waterfront upgraded, but not the whole waterfront. So we're looking for more sources of funding for that to get fixed. Also because East Harlem is a big flood zone. So we need the waterfront to also act as a barrier to protect the schools that are right on the waterfront, the public housing that's right on the waterfront, all of the spaces that are there that we don't want to see flooding into East Harlem. Same for the east side of Inwood. It's a major flood zone. We want to see more flood barriers be put into that area. So that's another example. There's a lot of things that we can do with the Bond Act uptown. And I'll say the really exciting piece that was mentioned is that through the advocacy from our group and other groups, that we have, the state has promised that a certain proportion of the funding is specifically going to go to what we call disadvantaged communities, which is really communities that are lower income, communities that are majority communities of color, and they're places that are dealing with more environmental hazards than others. So it definitely is Northern Manhattan. Our partners in the South Bronx will benefit from this, and we'll know that there's a certain proportion of this money that has to be directed towards us and towards these communities. So we have a lot of opportunity here, and it's important to flip over that ballot and vote for the Bond Act. And I'm happy to answer any more questions in the chat. I know, but Andy's on answering them, so thank you, Andy. Gwen, you mentioned the arts piece. That is something that can be incorporated, like say if we're getting money for a new park and then the city is designing the park, we can be advocating for certain designs to be in there, such as like specific kinds of art that we want to see, for example. So there's room to be creative there. So thank you, everybody.
Charles, you're muted.
1 or 2 questions. If anyone has 1 or 2 questions, I'm sorry. If not, I'll move on to Astrid.
Yep. Anyone else have any last questions? You can put them in the chat, or
yeah,
you shout one out right here.
Okay. It's you, Astrid.
That sounds good. Charles, are you able to share the slides?
Yep,
You got
I'm about
it.
to do that. There you go.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, hello, everyone. My name's Astrid. I'm with We Act for Environmental Justice federal policy team. So I work in our DC office as a legislative coordinator. And I'm here today to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act, which is another source of funding that hopefully has a lot of investments in environmental justice and things like that. So I feel like it builds off really well with the Bond Act conversation. So I'm excited to kind of provide some of the federal information. Okay, next slide, please. All right. So the Inflation Reduction Act, some of you may recall the Build Back Better agenda, and that was getting a lot of press and folks were talking about it. Now it's already been almost a year, so the end of 2021 was when Senator Manchin walked away from the Build Back Better agenda. And so what ended up happening is there were very closed door negotiations for probably about like 8 months between Senator Schumer of New York and Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. And We ACT and other advocates continued to work tirelessly to really uplift specific funding in environmental justice that we wanted to remain in the package, because part of Manchin's issue was that the package was too large. So we knew that it was going to end up being significantly smaller. So where that kind of ended up is in August, the Inflation Reduction Act was signed into law by President Biden. And that's what that picture there shows. And it's the biggest investment in climate and energy made by the US government. The total package in climate and energy adds up to, oh, could you
Sorry
go back?
about that. I'm
No,
sorry.
you're good.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Goes up to $369 billion of investment. And a lot of those investments do come in the form of tax credits. So it's not necessarily direct dollars, but that's the estimate of how much the investments will end up being. And the bill text that was released is 725 pages. So we ACT staff were very busy for a while trying to figure out, what in the package was good, especially with an EJ lens, and then what would be potentially harmful for communities on the front lines. So overall, these investments are expected to reduce carbon emissions by roughly 40% by 2030. And multiple studies and forecasts have found that number to be about true. It might be a little higher than what will actually end up happening, but this package really will put us closer to, meeting those energy or carbon reductions and really getting on a path to cleaner energy. And this package is funded fully by different pricing reforms. So there's a 15% corporate minimum tax, and that's expected to generate $222 billion, as well as prescription drug pricing reform, which is expected to also generate over $250 billion. There's also going to be increased IRS tax enforcement. So basically what this means is that all of those billions of investments will be paid for by these reforms. And there actually will be additional hundreds of billions of dollars that will go towards reducing the debt deficit at the federal level. And part of this package has been advertised as having up to $60 billion of investments directly for environmental justice communities. And I say about because we've realized that some of the programs included in that 60 billion include things like carbon capture and sequestration, or other, programs that we do not think benefit environmental justice communities. And I'll go into more detail about all of this, but to be able to get Senator Manchin to agree to this huge climate and energy package, he unfortunately had a lot of negotiating power because it needed every single senator in a 50-50 Senate. So that means 50 Republicans, 50 Democrats. They needed every single Democrat senator to vote for this package, and Senator Manchin was really resistant for months and months and months. So he really had the opportunity to make a lot of changes to the package and put in a lot of really bad investments to end up getting it to passage. So I'll kind of go into more details about all of that. And you can head to the next slide, please. Great. So I know this is a lot of text, so I wanted to just kind of share the statement that WEAC wrote on the Inflation Reduction Act. And this is just part of it, but basically what I want to, the takeaways from this statement is that this is a historic amount of funding that is dedicated to reach environmental justice communities. And WEAC and other advocates really work diligently to get these funds. And we really are excited about what has been allocated for environmental justice communities. But like I mentioned, there also were some concessions specifically benefiting the fossil fuel industry that Senator Manchin negotiated into this climate bill. And so we are very clear that those concessions will harm the health, livelihoods, and futures, especially of communities of color and areas of low income who already face the worst impacts of climate change. So like any legislation, it's definitely not a perfect package. So we're, holding the both and where there are things that we are really excited about and things that are harmful, so it's not a perfect deal, but I'll go into detail about some of the good and some of the bad so you can kind of just learn more about this massive package. Like I said, 725 pages, so there's a lot in there. Next slide. Great. So this isn't all of the environmental justice highlights, but I just wanted to share a couple of the environmental justice investments that this package includes. So some of them, there's $1.5 billion allocated for urban tree planting. Like Sona was saying, this is something that the New York Bond Act could also do. Then these funds would hopefully complement that and be able to provide more funding for tree planting, which can be really, really important for reducing extreme heat and the urban heat island effect. There is also significant funding for environmental reviews and NEPA, which is the National Environmental Policy Act. And the National Environmental Policy Act is a federal policy that ensures that communities have a voice and are able to have public input, public comment before large-scale projects are built. And NEPA has often been severely underfunded, so this allows there to be enough funding so they're able to really ensure that community voices are engaged in the process. The package also includes $3 billion for reconnecting communities that were disconnected by transportation development. So if you think of communities, I know in the Bronx this happened where a huge highway goes through, cuts right through a community, oftentimes low income and communities of color, and just really devastates the environment and the culture of that area. So this part of the package would actually provide funding to really focus on reconnecting those communities. In addition, there's $9 billion for electrification rebates, and we are going to work to ensure that those rebates are accessible as much as possible to folks that may be of lower income, because we know basically what a rebate means is you'd be able to purchase things and then you'd get money back. But sometimes folks don't have the upfront cost to be able to purchase, electrification, appliances, things like that for their homes, and wait to get the money back. So that's, something that we want to advocate to ensure that that money actually reaches communities that need it the most. As you may have heard, there's also tax credits for electric vehicles. That also has a bit of a concern because there's a requirement about minerals and components coming from America or 20 of its free trade agreement partners. And currently a lot of the minerals come from countries, including China, which makes this tax credit a little, it's a little iffy onto how well it will end up being, how well it will end up working out. There's also $2.6 billion for coastal restoration, funds for block grants, which I'll talk about a little more. just to get through some of the more, there's a lot in this package. There's funding for electrifying large scale trucks. And in addition, there's significant funding for air quality monitoring and funding to address air pollution at low income and disadvantaged schools. And there's also 27 billion, with 60% would go to disadvantaged communities for a greenhouse gas reduction fund. So I know Sonal and others were mentioning that in New York State, there is the disadvantaged communities definition. So the federal government also, under the Biden administration, has something that's been called Justice 40. And that's where 40% of all federal spending in energy and climate, among other things, has to go to disadvantaged communities. So the entire package would have to follow that Justice 40 commitment. So there's similarly a really big opportunity for these so-called disadvantaged communities. We know it's not the best term, but that's what the federal government is saying, to ensure they get significant investments, especially because oftentimes those communities have been severely disinvested or had, an excess of polluting industries cited in their areas. All right, Charles, I think the next one's a poll. Let me know.
Okay, so let me see if I can pop the poll. Okay. Uh-oh. Let's see something.
It's okay if not, but
No,
I
let's see if I can get it. Because I did put it in there. It says I'm logged on to another device. Let me see what happens here.
No worries. I can also have it read in the chat too, if that would be easier to have folks drop in their ideas.
Sure. How am I logged onto another device? Sure, read that in the chat. I don't know why the poll is not working.
Oh, I see it.
You see it?
Yeah.
Does everyone see it?
Yeah, I just popped it up. I was able to do it.
Oh, thank you. So the first question is just, I know that there's a lot of different options, but just if you could think of your community and of all these different investment areas, I just chose a few. Which do you feel like your community would need the most? And then the second question, I'll begin to talk about it more after the poll, but if your community was to apply for a grant, which focus area would you most want them to address? So maybe we'll give everyone like a minute or two to fill out the poll, and then I can kind of look through the answers and keep talking a little bit more about the Inflation Reduction Act. And I also did want to note we will have time at the end for some questions. So I know it's a lot of information. So if you have questions, feel free to put it in the chat or save it for the end.
So Pamela, can you also get the results since you plugged it in?
Not sure. I'm gonna try right now.
Okay.
So I just click the end poll and I can get the results, or?
Yes, that should work. Did everyone get, hopefully people, yes.
I could not submit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just ended the poll.
Oh,
That's okay. We'll get some answers. If you want to put more answers, you can definitely drop it in the chat too.
Okay, do you want me to share the results?
That would be wonderful. Okay. So it looks like for the first question, the top choice was, it's pretty close tie between urban green space and the home efficiency and electrification. So there's a couple grants in the Inflation Reduction Act that do focus on things like that. So Pamela, are you able to save the poll results? I'll also take a picture just in case. But that's really helpful to know. So all of these things are—
They were my choices too.
Oh, good. I'm glad they were.
Even though I didn't get a chance to submit in time. Okay.
I'm glad they were represented there. So these are all things that have funding buckets from the Inflation Reduction Act. So they're things that WEACT will be working hard to try to implement and ensure the funding actually makes it to communities like those that WEACT serves. So it's helpful to know, some of the things that you think your community might need most. All right, looking at the second question. Ooh, that's a close one. So that's the one of the focus areas that you think you would want a community in your or an organization in your community to apply for. So it looks like the top choice is air and pollution reductions, close followed by workforce development and extreme heat are actually tied, and then community engagement and politics. So as I'm sure you can tell, all of these things are, areas that WEACT focuses on. So that's really great to see that, they're all priorities and we understand that. So it's awesome to see that folks are really thinking they're all priorities. All right, thanks for doing that poll. So I'll keep going, Charles, if you're able to hop me back to the screen.
Yep, I'll take you right back.
Thank you.
Okay, let me share it. Okay, we've done this one already. You want to go to the next one?
Yes, please. And you can go to the next one.
It went too far?
Yeah, perfect. So that last question that I asked, the second question on the survey, which was talking about the grants, part of why I wanted to ask that was because environmental justice leaders, I believe Anna Baptista was really a foundational part to getting this investment called the Environmental and Justice Climate Block Grant. And to kind of provide more information about the package, I just wanted to zoom in on this one program so you get a bit of a deep dive. This is a program that we're really excited about and will provide funding $2.8 billion for grants that Indian tribes, local governments, higher ed institutions, or community-based nonprofits like WEACT and a lot of our partners would be able to apply for to really fund community-led projects and grants that fit into some of these buckets. So the text you see below actually comes directly from the bill text. So these programs could be community-led air and pollution monitoring, prevention and remediation, as well as investments in low and zero emission and resilient technologies and related infrastructure and workforce development that help reduce greenhouse gas. So that was, it looks like all of these were priority issues for WEACT members because the other ones are about urban heat, extreme heat, climate resiliency, and indoor air pollution reductions, as well as really ensuring that disadvantaged communities, once again, that's the word that the federal government is using, are included in state and federal public processes. And, just really ensuring that folks are part of making policy. So that's kind of a deep dive in one program. And now to kind of round out talking about the Inflation Reduction Act, I want to share an overview of some of the fossil fuel and false solutions that unfortunately were included in this package as well. So Charles, if you could advance to the next slide. Next one. Thank you. So like I had said at the top of the call, the package unfortunately is a bit of a mixed bag. And here's some of the reasons that there were investments that WEACT and other allied organizations are not excited about. Once again, since it's such a large bill, this is just a broad overview, so I won't go into everything, but these are a few of the top things that we find concerning. So I mentioned that there's significant tax credits. A lot of that is going to renewable energy like wind and solar, but the tax credits are also available for industries like carbon capture and sequestration, which is a very new technology. Unfortunately, it hasn't been able to prove significant results, and it's not as efficient, and we also don't believe that carbon capture and sequestration benefits the communities that are often, sitting closer to a coal plant, for example, because it's not like they're stopping the pollution, and there's still a chance for that pollution to be negatively affecting those nearby communities. There's also funding for hydrogen in the package, as well as biofuels and nuclear. They all get tax credits. And some of those energy types are classified as clean energy, which we are really hoping for more renewables energy, because those are not fully renewable and oftentimes have a lot of harmful side effects. For example, nuclear has significant radioactive waste that must be dealt with, and unfortunately oftentimes ends up being placed in indigenous communities or communities of low income or areas and communities of color. So, we don't see those as the direction that we need to be moving to get to a just energy transition. The package also is really slimmed down. It's
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. It's missing affordable housing, as well as universal pre-K. So there's a lot of things that were cut out of the package that obviously are really needed right now in communities across the country. I discussed the electrification rebates and the fact that the 60 billion includes things like carbon capture and sequestration, which we don't see as real solutions for communities. Another, unfortunate thing that this bill includes is it would greenlight offshore drilling in federal waters in Alaska and in the Gulf of Mexico. And that's something that Senator Manchin was able to get into the bill. And, it's just really unfortunate that this climate bill that's supposed to be addressing climate change actually includes things for the fossil fuel industry, which is really sad, because we know the fossil fuel industry and carbon emissions are one of the main drivers of climate change in the first place. Similarly, the bill would also require the Interior Department to offer at least 2 million acres a year for onshore oil and gas lease sales. And if they don't do that, they can't offer federal land to be used for solar and wind power projects. So this is another example of where the bill is tying, the future deployment and growth of renewable energies like solar and wind directly to the fossil fuel industry, and making sure for there to be new large-scale projects, there has to be oil and gas lease sales, both onshore and I believe offshore as well. So that's another, kind of unfortunate part of the deal that shows that it's not a perfect package, and, there are a number of things that will be benefiting the fossil fuel industry. Next slide. So the final part that we're really concerned about, so everything I talked about before now was passed into law with the Inflation Reduction Act when President Biden signed it mid-August. There's another part of the deal that wasn't able to be passed in that package because that package was restricted to only being budgetary. So everything in the package had to be about funding levels, either adding new funding or decreasing funding. And because of how the process works, it's called budget reconciliation. Everything had to be focused about the budget, and it could not include policy. But for Senator Manchin to vote on that, he got a commitment from, for Manchin, he got a commitment from Senator Schumer, the White House administration, so like President Biden, as well as the Speaker Pelosi, who's the head of the House of Representatives, to do something called permit reform. And I put that in quotes because it's really, really gutting permit. And this is a side deal that official text has not been released. We've only seen text that was leaked by the press. And the draft text had the watermarks of the American Petroleum Institute on it. And the American Petroleum Institute is one of the largest lobby organizations for the fossil fuel industry. So we know that this text was directly getting influenced by, if not being written by, the American Petroleum Institute directly. And no communities have been part of the process of developing this text. And this permit deal is really, really awful for communities and especially environmental justice. So to kind of share a little bit about what's in this permit side deal, one of the things that this side deal would do is greenlight a fracked gas pipeline in West Virginia, which is Senator Manchin's home state, called the Mountain Valley Pipeline. The Mountain Valley Pipeline already has over 350 violations of water quality related protections. So it's already, it's already been harming the local environment there. And, it really just should not be built because it would lock us into further fossil fuel dependence. Because once the pipeline is built, it will be used for decades. And it's also not completed. So advocates are really fighting strong to ensure that this pipeline isn't completed as part of the deal. And there's been successful lawsuits and a lot of permits have been denied, which is why Senator Manchin is kind of going through the back door to try to get this pipeline approved, because currently it's at a state where it likely would fail. So he's kind of doing this sneaky side deal, and that's part of what's included in it. Some of the other things this deal does, and unfortunately it also has a lot of really bad things, so I won't be able to go over all of them today in the interest of time, but it really guts the National Environmental Policy Act, which is also known as NEPA. So it reduces the public's ability to make public comments. It shortens the public comment period and makes it so that if folks needed more time to comment, for example, if it's a really complicated project, the industry sponsor would also have to approve that extension, which oftentimes the industry sponsor isn't necessarily on the side of the public. So we think that's a really dangerous procedure to set. It also weakens provisions of the Clean Water Act that the Trump administration had enacted, and it also reduces the ability of communities to file suit. So right now under NEPA, most communities have up to 6 years after a project is approved to figure out if there's violations or significant harm to their communities, and then they can sue the project. One thing this side deal would do is reduce it to 5 months after the project is approved. So that means, just imagine a community who doesn't necessarily have lawyers working for them. They would have to figure out what's wrong with the project, where the violations are in these complicated federal texts, figure out how to get funding for a lawyer, because they know that's not easy, and then go against these large scale projects. So it's really clear that this deal is favoring the polluters and the fossil fuel industry and working really hard to limit the voices that communities have. So we staff have been working really, really hard to do everything we can to fight this deal. In this photo here at the top, you can see Nadia Hutchinson, a colleague at the Federal Policy Office, speaking at a rally that happened this Thursday, right in front of the US Capitol. And there were folks from all over the country, including Appalachia, where the pipeline would be going through, sharing stories about this side deal and why we really need it to be ended. And so just to kind of get us to where we're at right now, one of the worst things about this deal is that Senator Schumer said that he would attach it to must-pass legislation to fund the government. And we're expecting that to be happening this month. So what that means, I know it's a little bit technical, but what it means is that it would be sneaking this part of the deal onto a regular funding process for the government, which basically means that representatives could not vote against it unless they're willing to shut down the government. And it's making it really, really tricky for a lot of representatives that really are opposed to this deal because of the negative impacts it would have for their constituents across the country. But making it so if they were to do that, they would risk shutting down the entire government right before an election year, because you know that elections are coming up in November for all members of the House. So it's a really, really just like really bad deal and something that, you know, we're really concerned about. So 72 members of the House of Representatives signed a letter calling for this bill to be decoupled from the continuing resolution, which is that government funding bill, to ensure that folks have a right to represent their constituents and, you know, not have to just vote on this deal. Oh, and I see Chris put Nadia's speech in the chat. So I recommend everyone, you know, take a chance to look at that. And also yesterday, over 30 environmental justice leaders that we helped sent a letter directly to Speaker Pelosi, demanding that this deal be opposed and not attached to, you know, any must-pass legislation. So we're mounting a really, really strong fight, and we hope that we can stop this deal because of the harms it does to communities. So you can do the next slide. And just the pretty picture, that was from the rally. And so I'm going to drop in the chat a couple ways that you can take action if you want to do something right now. The first link will be a comment page for Senator Schumer, and especially as New York State constituents, Senator Schumer is your senator, and he needs to know that communities, you know, are against this permit side deal with the harms that it will cause to communities. So if you have time and are able to fill out that form today, that would be super, super helpful. Just so he knows that the folks that vote for him see this deal, know that he helped make it happen and that we're not okay with it. The next one is just a simple action alert that's calling for Biden to stop the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which is that pipeline that this permit deal would approve. So if anyone has time to go through, you know, maybe if you can open those links now, we would really, really appreciate folks filling that out. And now I think I'm opening it up to questions. Charles, how much time do we have for questions?
Does anyone have any questions quickly? Let me know. No, everyone speak at once, and that's okay. If you want time to think about it, that's okay too.
Yes, I know it's a lot of information, so.
Yes, and I think most of the stuff will, sorry, Ashley, I think we'll be posting some of this stuff, information on our website. So if you really want to Can I email my follow-up to me? Yeah, we can. So,
And I'll drop my email in as well in case folks want to get a little bit more information about it. Well,
I have
thank you,
a quick
everyone.
question.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know if you can hear
Thank
me.
you.
Hi, very quickly. My name is Jocelyn. I have a really quick question. I've heard a lot about the issue around extraction of minerals for renewables. And I know that there's incentive in this bill, especially for countries that work with other countries that are extracting the minerals in a really harmful way, unsustainably, but also impacting the local communities. So I don't know. I'm not really sure what I'm asking here. I think more just even making a statement or a curiosity around that being an issue. And if you
Yeah.
have any extra information about that, it would be great.
I do quickly, and thank you for that question. So one thing that this permit side deal would do is cause 25 projects that the president would have to choose, energy projects, to always be fast tracking and always be going through that reduced public comment, things like that. And in the draft text we've seen, it would have to include 4 critical minerals projects at all times. And this is for the next 10 years. So there would always have to be 25 projects. As soon as one was approved or an application was taken away, there'd have to be a new one. So it includes 4 critical minerals projects, as well as 5 fossil fuel or biofuel projects would have to be part of those 25 priority projects. And of these 25, only 6 of the projects would have to be designated as without the use of fossil fuels. So technically the rest could be using, fossil fuels, which we just think is really horrendous, especially, given where we're at with climate change and just making sure we need to address it. And without the fossil fuels, it doesn't say wind, it doesn't say renewables, they don't mention solar anywhere in the package. So it's really clear that it's not moving us in the right direction for renewable deployment. So yes, that's a very good question.
I think just really quickly, the other issue though is that minerals being extracted that are actually being used for renewable energies are not being extracted in a sustainable way. So that's just like a complementary issue that I find really compelling. That the communities where these minerals are being extracted, so environmental justice isn't happening on the ground, and then the countries that have monopolies like China on these minerals that are being used for renewables, which is sad because renewables are important, renewable energy sources. So I just think that's a really important issue to look at from an environmental justice perspective.
Yes, that definitely is. Thank you.
okay. Moving forward, and we have one more last topic in our meeting. Bo, are you okay?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're all good.
Great.
Thank you, Astro.
Amazing.
Thank you, Astro. Wonderful job. Really appreciate you. That's a lot of information. Wonderful job in Washington, D.C. And we will continue to get the updates from you. And if anybody has any questions around the IRA Act, please email it to us or reach out to Astrid. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Good morning, good afternoon, good almost afternoon, everyone. My name is Beaumont Morton. You all may have seen me also as Taylor Morton. I'm going for a name change. Taylor is also not a dead name, so if you call me Taylor, it's on accident. It's no problem. Great. I'm really happy to be here with you all and talk a little bit about our Beauty Inside Out adult survey results. Our Beauty Inside Out campaign is really focused on thinking about how we engage with personal care products, especially as they relate to women of color, and knowing that there's a really disproportionate gap when we think about harm in personal care products. We wanted to take some time and really invest in and studying how products impact our folks in Harlem specifically. So we asked, and some of you may have done the survey or know someone who's done the survey over the past couple of years, but we were really excited to have a couple of results to share out with you all. All right, so just as an overview, the survey was administered throughout Northern Manhattan back in the fall and spring of 2020. The target audience included women and folks who are considered non-binary or femme identifying folks of color. It had 92 questions and we really focused on the use of chemical straighteners and skin lighteners. So chemical straighteners, thinking about relaxers, different type of keratin treatments, anything that you would use to chemically straighten your hair, and skin lighteners, and whether that be in the form of soaps, creams, sprays, anything like that. And not only focusing on product use for folks in Harlem, but also thinking about perceptions and attitudes around product use. We had about 350 surveys received, and our final study population was 296, right? So we really wanted to focus on a specific zip code, focus on Northern Manhattan. So some of those folks who submitted their surveys weren't quite in the zip codes that we needed. So we ended up with about 296 surveys. Thinking about why Northern Manhattan, these are some of the study neighborhoods that were included. And really those that we focus on in our work at WEACT. It's so important to think about personal care product usage, right? These are products that we use every day, our deodorants, our soaps, our shampoo, conditioner, anything like that, especially as it relates to communities of color, right? And when we say communities of color, we know that it's not a monolith, right? There are a lot of different folks that we can break down when we think about folks who are of different races and ethnicities. But Northern Manhattan is really special because we have a lot of different folks who are considered of color uptown. And so it's a really special place to sort of study as a place where folks often get hair care products at different independent shops and all that good stuff. It's a good place to start focusing on some of these issues. And also, this is the core of the people that we care about, right? So we really try to narrow down neighborhoods and zip codes in Northern Manhattan. And I just wanted to go over a little bit more about the population of the study, right? The people that we worked with. So the folks in the study around age, there ended up being about 30% of folks who are around the age of 25 to 34, and then about 22% of folks who are considered 35 to 44 years old. As far as race goes, 47% of folks consider themselves Black, African American, or African. 10% of folks were Asian American, and 7% of folks American Indian or Alaska Native. As far as ethnicity, we had a little over 50% of folks considered themselves as Hispanic or Latinx, and 78% of the surveys were completed in English. We also had a Spanish version of the survey. We also looked at country of origin. So a little over 50% of folks were born in the US, and about 40% of folks were born in other countries. And the highest level of education of thinking about having a degree, we ended up having about half of our study have a college education. If you have questions in the chat, I can also answer later. So looking at chemical straighteners, right? Chemical processing treatments, as I mentioned before, those that are used to transform wavy, curly, or coily hair into straight hair. You may have seen or heard of Just For Me. Just For Me is a product that sort of like a kid relaxer, or a relaxer for younger children, right? When we think about chemical and hair straighteners, we found that in our study, a little over half of the folks had what they considered natural hair. And we saw from the right that folks and a smaller percentage either straightened with heat or used a protective hairstyle. And an even smaller percentage of folks straightened with chemical straighteners. I think this is a really good thing to think about and consider when we think about patterns of hair usage, right? When we think about the natural hair natural movement, and just what folks might be wearing, right? At certain times, we may see some of these areas of the pie sort of ebb and flow, depending on some of those cultural pieces. We also saw that the use of chemical straighteners is high among specific groups. So when we look at, the smaller umbrella of race and ethnicity, right, we can see that it's pretty even among African-American women of color, African women, and Afro-Caribbean or Afro-Latina women of color. About 50% is of the same range of folks who are using chemical straighteners in this study. But when we look at folks of Asian descent, we can see that Central Asian folks from this study had an increased or greater use of some of these chemical straighteners, right? And remembering that this is only a sort of a smaller study or a peek into some of these trends, but it's also very interesting to think about how within certain smaller groups, some of these product usages could be higher. As mentioned before, we also thought about some of the Eurocentric sort of beliefs around beauty, hair care standards, and all of these other areas. So we asked a little bit more about what people think when it comes to straight hair, right? As you can see here, about 45% of folks thought that straight hair makes you look younger. 50% of folks thought that straight hair makes women look more beautiful. About 50% of folks thought that straight hair makes women look more professional. And about 43% think that straight hair makes women look wealthier, right? So when we think about product usage, hair straighteners, right, all those sort of things, it's not only, thinking about style or convenience or some of those things that may urge us to use chemical straighteners, but it's also some of these standards of that center around, what it means to be a Eurocentric, model of beauty. Definitely something to think about when we're thinking about and considering trying new products, trying products that are less harmful or steps less harmful, right? It's not only how can we change our use of product, but how do we change our perceptions of some of these things to benefit our health as well. When we look at participants concerned about the ingredients in hair care and the straighteners, right, we can see there's a very solid about core chunk of folks who are very concerned and another sort of smaller chunk of folks who are moderately concerned. But there's also, which I think is also really significant, right? More than half of the participants weren't concerned about chemical straighteners or were only slightly concerned about chemical straighteners and the pose that they bring to health, which is a really good indicator of the work that needs to be done when we think about communicating to folks the hazards and the risks of using chemical straighteners, what that means for your long-term health, and also having more of these conversations about some of these Eurocentric standards that folks are chasing, right? That we want folks to be more concerned and engaged around these issues when they really think about what the impact is on their own health. About 1/3 of participants make their own beauty products. So about 40% of folks make their own hair masks, 23% of folks make their own conditioners, 23% of folks make their own hair oils, and then 21% of folks make their own shampoos. There are a lot of different healthy products that you can use to make your own products that work for you. We do a lot of work with young folks at the Wheels Academy. We've done work with kids in the Summer Search program as well, which is an after-school program. And a lot of those students have really enjoyed taking the time to create their own beauty products. So it's really interesting to see in the adult population what folks are really interested in making as far as creating your own product that may be more healthy for your own hair. When we think about skin lighteners, are products that are used to lighten our skin, and even right in not only lightening our skin as a whole, but even in certain places of our body. We also were able to see a couple of different trends. skin liners have contain mercury, which can cause a lot of health issues, especially when we think about our kidneys or mercury poisoning. But we were able to see areas where participants apply skin lighteners most often, right? Really significant when we think about our face, right? Almost 60% of folks apply skin lighteners directly to their face, and we're able to see another 40% of folks only applying skin lighteners in dark spots, right? Maybe in places where your skin has been a little damaged, right? Or your skin may be changing, the pigment may be changing, right? Other folks are using skin lighteners and spot uses, and we're able to see some other folks using skin lighteners on the rest of their body, right? And on the lower end, like their neck in some places, right? A lot of popular products also contain a lot of the chemicals that are used in skin lighteners, right? Even popular brands, including Neutrogena, Clean and Clear, a lot of other products that are a little bit more secretive, or they're not really explicit about what that about the skin lightening use. When we went into a lot of the independent stores in Harlem as well, we're able to see brands that were explicitly advertising skin lightening as well. And so all of that to say, right, skin lighteners, as we may not think we are directly going to use something on the shelf that is lightening our skin that says it on the box, you may also be using products that may not say skin lightening on the box or on the product, that also have skin lightening components or ingredients to them. When we looked at perceived social and economic benefits of light skin, right? We asked people, so what do you think about people who have lighter skin? What is the perception there, right? We saw an astounding 52% of women think that having lighter skin makes you look more beautiful, right? And on the lower ends, right, seeing on other trends that are competitive with each other, right? A lot of folks also thought that having lighter skin make you look more professional and also made you look wealthier, right? And on the lower end, we see this 37% of this perception that having lighter skin makes you look younger, right? So we also were able to see, when we looked at hair straightening, right? About 50% of folks believed across the board that having straighter hair had some sort of benefit, and we were able to see, especially around looking more beautiful, looking more professional, and looking more wealthier, right? That we're also able to see there's about a 50% range of folks who believe that having lighter skin also is a benefit in these sort of ways. Looking at participants who were more concerned about ingredients in skin lighteners, we're able to see a lot of change here, right? There's a much smaller group of folks who are, very concerned about skin lighteners and moderately concerned, and a much larger sort of the pie when we look at this blue, sort of baby blue area of folks who weren't concerned at all about skin lighteners. That may be due to not knowing that a product that you're using that doesn't say skin lightening on it is still a skin lightener. That may also be due to not knowing about the health risks of skin lighteners, right? Could be due to a lot of different things, but if nothing else, right, raises concern that a lot of folks aren't concerned about some of the health risks that skin lighteners pose. When we think about making their own beauty products for your face, we saw about 28% of folks make their own face scrub, 26% of folks make their own face mask. I think it's pretty popular now to make your own face mask. A lot of folks do that. And we saw some 22% of folks making their own lotion, and 14% of folks making their own body scrub. I know sugar scrub and salt scrubs are specifically pretty popular with folks, and that's pretty trendy. Some key messages just to think about, and what we saw in the data: skin lighteners and chemical straighteners are heavily prevalent in Northern Manhattan, both explicitly saying skin lightener and hair straightener on the shelf, and in products where they're not saying this is a skin lightener or this is a chemical straightener on the shelf, right? These are heavily prevalent in Northern Manhattan, and they specifically focus on and target women of color and femme-identifying folks of color. Chemicals and beauty products are linked to health problems, right? Thinking about what you're putting on your skin, what you're putting in your hair, right, can have a lot of implications for your hormones, for reproductive system, for a lot of other areas and parts of our body that we need to live and survive. And one thing that we want to focus on as well is we saw a lot of perceptions that were linked to Eurocentric standards, right? Having an intervention and an action in this work is really important when we think about how folks view themselves and how that connects to some of the products that we use. And I know that we are working really hard to expand our search of young folks to include in our youth setting, right? To think about how we can intervene with young folks before they start to use products more heavily and they start to have more agency over the products that they use. How can we intervene at an earlier age and really start to turn the tides on that work? We have a lot of really great things coming up for our Beauty Inside Out work in the fall. I know we're working on a couple of youth events. We have a Beauty Inside Out working group. If anyone is interested in getting involved in knowing more about this work, getting involved in community events, helping us look at products in different stores. I know we've been wanting to survey a lot of stores, and that takes a lot of work. Please email Sophia Huda at weact.org, and I'll make sure that this is followed up by folks. And the second thing I wanted to think about or throw out as far as action, we're really focused on getting this information for our young folks, for our young women of color who are living in Northern Manhattan. We're looking for folks who identify as, as femme or as girls who are of color between the ages of 13 and 17 that live in Northern Manhattan. So that's West Harlem, Central Harlem, East Harlem, Inwood, and Washington Heights, right? And remembering that like the zip codes are really important because they sort of certify who can be included in the study. The survey takes about 15 or 20 minutes, and anyone who completes it will receive a Subway restaurant card. And if you are between the ages of 13 and 17, parental permission is required. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that as you are interested in the work. I believe that Chris is going to drop in a link for the survey as well and how to get involved. And happy to answer any questions or thoughts that folks have as well. Crystal asked about hair dye. Yes, hair dye is also, hair dye is not a chemical straightener, but there are chemicals in hair dyes that are harmful to health. I know there are some natural hair dyes, but a lot of it depends on the brand and the chemicals for what you're using.
All right, so we're coming to an end, and I just want to make sure that anyone has any questions to make sure that we can answer them, or you can put it in the chat. And then you can also actually email Taylor for any other additional questions. So we're asking for your help. If you know any teenagers or any places where they gather, and you can help us out to get some of these teen surveys done so we can get the data and understand more about what the teens are using in their using in products for beauty. That way we can actually get some good information and understand how to approach them and inform them about the different stuff that they're using. So this is one of our plans that we're trying to do. So please help us out. If you know of a group, Girl Scouts or anything like that, or an after-school program that you maybe know of, and that the granddaughter or your daughter or your niece attend, please let us know. We will be happy to do that if it's in Northern Manhattan. So in closing,
are you going to be? Can I ask you something, Charles William Allen? You know we're having that youth day on the 24th. I'm hoping that, I know that you guys are going to be participating. Will you have that kind of youth information that day to share with the participants? Because we got 4 school districts coming.
Yeah, we'll make sure that happens. For the 24th of what again?
Yeah, the senator is throwing Youth Resource Day at the state office building on the plaza.
Yeah, we already submitted that information to
Okay,
both.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, because if that piece he just mentioned about the youth, that would be great.
Okay. So
Thanks, Pamela.
We'll get the organizers there and make sure that happens. Perfect. All right. I guess this is it. Conclusion. Well, welcome back, everybody. I hope you enjoyed your summer, but it's now time to get back to work. And you got all the information, and we'll be in contact with you. I think that we have something coming up in Climate Week. Check your event calendar. Make sure that you are participating and that we're doing all the things that we need to do to improve the environment that we live in. All right, guys. All minds are clear. Have a good day. We'll talk to you the next time.
Thank you, Charles. Same to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for all the useful information. Everyone have a great weekend.
Yes, thank you.
Be safe.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Thank you for the information.
Marshall, we got that nitrous stuff, man. You gotta get back on my team, man. I don't know where you been.
I've been skating, man.
I know. I'm gonna have to snatch you up, man. I'm gonna have to come and visit you, man.
Nah, I've been roller skating a lot. Working on my health.
That's cool.
Okay.
Where are you?
I've been down to the Walden rink. That's not a good skating rink. Where you be skating at?
I've been all over. I Sunday mornings I go out to Pier 2, Brooklyn Bridge Park.
Okay.
I kind of cracked the code so I can skate at Flippers. That's the Rockefeller Center pop-up. I've been to Central Park a couple of times. They got like it's ridiculous. They want $59 to skate, but if you got your library card, you can skate for $20, and I guess the bargain of them all is over at Riverbank State Park on Wednesday and Fridays. They got the adult night, and if you got your own skates, which I do, it's only $2.
Charles, stop the recording.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I don't have power to do. Let me see. I got a power.